So I don't usually start out these remarks by talking about myself, but I hope that you will forgive me if just this one time I do for just a minute. Because 71 days ago, something rather splendid happened to me. My partner, Royce, of many years, and I were married up near Lake Tahoe. And we didn't lose the rings. See, they're still here. And the towering thunderstorm that threatened our outdoor ceremony slid by just to the east. And the bear, really, the bear, the four-legged kind that later that same night tore apart a neighbor's car, had the decency to stay away during the ceremony. And so we got to live in a happy bubble for a little while. And even better, we took a short honeymoon to a place where internet connections weren't always that great. And let me tell you that having bad internet connections is actually good on a honeymoon. And yet still, the news seemed to find us wherever we were. And so we'd hear about nuclear saber rattling, the sudden announcement via a tweet, for God's sake, that transgender recruits would be barred from military service, rumors about the fate of the DACA program, and then just before we got back home, Charlottesville. And not only the horror of torch-lit, hate-filled marches, but also a president who soon made it clear that he sees scant moral distinction between white supremacists and those with the courage to stand up to them. And then back here in our favorite bubble of all, this, our fair and much-loved city, those same white supremacists and neo-Nazis, they were coming to San Francisco, they were coming to Berkeley, our towns. They were coming to our towns. These are difficult and indeed, in many ways, frightening times. And our community and our country have been through many, many hard days before, but somehow that does little to soften the kind of blind cruelty, the overt kind of animosity, the sheer meanness of spirit that we seem to be witnessing. And our community's not been silent. That wouldn't be who we are. That's not our nature. We weren't silent when Anita Bryant went crusading, or after Harvey was shot, or when a whole generation was dying, or when we lost Prop 8. No, we did then what we do now, what we must do now, and that is to stand up, lock our arms, raise our voices, act up, and fight back. So now, 260 long days, but who's counting? 260 long days since January 20th. I asked the question, is the resistance working? Well, obviously it's not working anywhere nearly well enough. The damage and the suffering are already enormous and self-evident. And compounding daily, the outrages accumulate. As recently as the last few days, the pronouncements about transgender rights and about religious exemptions from Jeff Sessions' Department of Justice, which, if you think about it, is an oxymoron if there ever was one. At the same time, I ask you to think about what the resistance, your resistance, our resistance, has helped to make happen. We have stopped any sweeping anti-LGBT executive order. We've slowed and partly blunted the heinous anti-Muslim travel ban. We've thwarted ploy after malicious, dishonest ploy to rip away the protections of the Affordable Care Act. And even DACA was not terminated outright. And whatever success it is that we're having, and I stress, it is very partial success, but whatever partial success we're having for one reason, and that is because we are standing together. We're not only looking after our own group's interests, however we define what our group is. When the ban on transgender military recruits was tweeted out, yes, it was LGBT voices, and especially T voices, that led the outcry. But there were also protests from civil rights groups, and from veterans groups, and from even 56 retired admirals and generals. In the wake of Charlottesville, it wasn't just African Americans and Jews who took to the streets, but thousands and thousands of others too. And when the day after the inauguration, millions of women took to the streets of America, it was the honor of many of us, allies, and of men, to march alongside them. And that is why I am so humbled and I am so proud of what you just heard about Horizon's role with No Hate SF, helping us all to say unequivocally, no, not here, not now, not ever. The white nationalists and their lot menaced the entire community, and that's why answer, our response to that as the LGBTQ Communities Foundation had to be for the entire community as well. Our power to resist comes from our standing together. So we must protect the LGBTQ dreamers in our midst, but that means we must defend all dreamers. We need to just make sure that every LGBT person, has access to health care, and that means defending access to health care for everybody. Separated, we can all fight our brave and just fights, and we will very likely lose. But instead, if we are together, we have a chance. And we have a chance not only to resist, but a chance also to hold high a vision of this world. A vision of this world that is about love over hate, compassion over greed, hope over fear, union over division, that is of justice and simple human dignity that is for all people. A year ago, when I stood in this ballroom before many of you, thanks for coming back, a lot of us thought we knew what was coming. We could be pretty confident that the right side of history was triumphing, that we were going to still have friends in those highest of places. The movement that as our river was flowing nicely and we thought we could see the way ahead. And yet, here we are. Here we are. And what that tells us, not just these last few months, these last 260 days, but also centuries of human history tell us, is that none of us can predict the future. We simply don't know what's coming. We don't know about what next week or next month, much less a year from now, a decade from now, or a generation from now. We just can't see around that next bend. And what this means from a community perspective, from a movement perspective, is that we must create the capacity to respond to whatever it is that the future is going to bring in needs and opportunities. And that is precisely why Horizons Foundation is so thrilled to be able to have entered into the second phase of our Now and Forever campaign. Horizons' historic campaign to ensure the future of this community for generations and generations to come. As some of you know, through the generosity of scores of donors, we surpassed our ambitious goal in the first phase of this campaign, which was to raise $3.7 million to invest in the foundation's capacity and to invest it in over multiple years, and especially to invest it in the single greatest opportunity that our community has ever had, and the single greatest opportunity that our community ever will have to build its financial capacity to meet what the needs of tomorrow are, whatever they are. And that opportunity, it lies in giving out of our estates. So now in phase 2 of the Now and Forever campaign, having completed phase 1, in phase 2, we have put forward an even bolder goal, a goal that is more ambitious than any goal of its kind in the history of our community, and that is to identify a minimum of $100 million in future legacy gifts to be given to this community and to identify them by the year 2020. And even more thrilling than sharing that with you is to let you know that as of tonight, we have already surpassed the halfway mark. With more than $50 million that have been committed by donors in future legacy gifts to the foundation and our community. And we have only just begun to bring this opportunity to hundreds, to thousands of other potential donors. This magnificent opportunity for all of us to ensure the future of this community that, for all of its many, many imperfections, has been a haven and a hope and a home for so many of us. This opportunity to be part of something that is so much larger than any of us ourselves. For it is with the funds from these future gifts, from the generosity of vision of these donors, gifts from you and from me and from thousands of others. It's from the funds that will come from these gifts that our community will be able to ensure that in the future our rights will be secured, to ensure that those who are most vulnerable in our community will be protected no matter what it is that we face, and to ensure that every single day our sick are taken care of, our elders are supported, our youth empowered, our culture is thriving, our histories are told, and that our movement is forever strong, day in and day out, year in and year out, for all of us, for future generations, for good and forever. When Royce and I got married, we felt not only joy, but an overwhelming sense of gratitude. Because our day came about only because so many in this gloriously diverse movement of ours had done so much for so long, and often against the steepest, even the most absurd of odds. And standing here tonight, I once again feel that sense of overwhelming gratitude. Looking out at seeing all of you, and feeling the power and the strength, and yes, the love that is in our community. And that is why, despite everything that is happening in our country, I'm so confident about our future, about where the river of our movement eventually goes. I've seen what we together can defeat, and also what it is that we can create. And we will get through this, and we will not only get through this, but we will continue to create a world in which all LGBTQ people, in which all people can live lives of pride, dignity, justice, and joy. And we will create that world, and we'll create that world together. And for that, I want to thank every one of you who is here with us tonight. For every time that you refuse to give up, that you refuse to accept anything less than full equality, thank you. For every time that you took to the streets to march, agitate, organize, protest, thank you. For every time that you stood with those in harm's way, that you wouldn't shut up and go home, that you wouldn't take no for an answer, and every time that you just kept coming back again and again and again. And for every time that you've given, and you've given again and again and again. Thank you. And for your presence here tonight, on this wonderful night of community and celebration from all of us at Horizons Foundation and from the very bottom of my heart. Thank you, thank you, thank you.